Thank you so much. I really just wanted to take a moment to welcome all of you to this legal clinic session, information session. We are so excited to see so many faces. And in this next hour, you'll have a chance to learn all about our incredible clinical programs. We are excited to share information with you and feel like while you listen to the information, you too will get excited about the possibility of participating in the clinics next year. I think I can speak personally. When I was in law school, it was definitely my favorite experience in law school. And from what I hear from our students, I think that resonates with many of them. I see some heads nodding who participated already. So you'll have a chance to learn about it, but really just wanted to take a moment to welcome all of you. If you need to eat lunch right now, we totally get it, but are excited to see all of your faces and get to share information with you. So with that, we will kick it off and start telling you about our clinical programs. The first clinical clinic that we're going to talk about is the Appellate Litigation Clinic. And I will give you some information. I am not the professor or director of that program, but unfortunately, the professor, Andrew Knapp, was not available to be with us during this session, but gave me the green light to speak on his behalf. So this is an opportunity to write a brief and appear before the Ninth Circuit, which is a really incredible experience. Currently, the clinic is offered as either fall or spring. So on some occasions, and I think we're hoping to move to this next year, which is why it's listed as 3 units in the fall, 2 units in the spring as a year-long course. But this past year, it was actually offered semester by semester. Most of the cases that you'll be working on are immigration-related cases. And the students are doing all of the legal research. They're doing writing the brief, meeting with the client, and then students who are selected get to appear before the Ninth Circuit and engage in oral argument. To apply for this clinic, you will apply directly to Andrew Knapp. His email is there, and you can send him any inquiries or any specific questions. This is a graded clinic, and it does meet the experiential requirement. Thank you.
Next is me. Couldn't find my mute button. Hi, everyone. I'm Professor Julia Vasquez, and I direct the Community Lawyering Clinic. Our Community Lawyering Clinic is pretty unique in that we're community-based. We serve a really specific community, and that is the CSUN, California State University Northridge students, all 40,000 of them. So I say that right now, feeling really busy, but also knowing that our work ebbs and flows. So next slide. And I like to think of 3 main units as our clinic. First, and probably the largest, and that's our direct legal service. So we run a legal clinic for any legal issue. And the students sign up for it, and we meet with them one-on-one. My job as your professor, I train you to be an amazing interviewer, to be an amazing researcher, to have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about this area of the law, and that's okay. I try and pre-teach you as much as possible. But as lawyers, the longer I am a lawyer, the more that I realize how much I don't know. But I also realize how good we are at researching things and counseling and putting the client's facts to work for them. And so this is what we do. You're going to get full training on trauma-informed lawyering, interviewing and counseling skills, research. If you don't know what area of law you want to get into, this is a great clinic for you, because we do family law, we do housing, we do tenants' rights, odometer fraud. But even if you do know the area of law that you want to practice, this is a great clinic for you to practice those skills immediately on lots of different clients. We also take on full scope representation cases. And so that means for certain types of cases, mainly immigration cases, I'm taking on a little bit more. We represent them from the beginning to the end of their case. I just got a green card in the mail. The name is not showing, so I'm maintaining confidentiality. This is what you could possibly do. We have other clinics who do that, but it's a balance, right? The next part that we do is large scale legal empowerment workshops. This is my favorite part of the semester. You get to propose a legal workshop that you think the CSUN community needs based on your interaction. Some of the things that we've done are your Know Your Rights with Immigration Enforcement, super popular cannabis law, the pot thickens. That was the title of one. Students need to know you can't smoke right in front of campus. Sorry, folks. You're going to develop that. You're going to practice with me. You're going to explain the law in lay-friendly terms. I'm going to teach you how to speak like a regular human again and not like a lawyer. Super empowering. At the end of the semester, the students are like, wow, I really liked that. I didn't think I was going to. And finally, we do as much as we can advocacy and policy based on what we see with the community. Again, we put the community first, the CSUN students. If we see that we need to do some advocacy work with the CSUN police because they're taking police reports in a way that's actually hurting the victim, we'll do that policy work. Recently, my students helped me write an expert witness piece for anti-immigration consultants. And I testified before the state Senate. So we see community lawyering as big picture and collaborative, but you will walk away with some really great skills as well. Very intersectional. Our clients have very intersectional issues. So you'll also learn some theory in my class. Next slide. I'm going fast because we have a lot today. Fall and spring, Tuesday afternoons, you do have a requirement of at least 3 hours live office hours and then 3 hours where you work independently. I went over most of this, 5 graded units, and this does meet the experiential requirements. So if you have any questions, my email will be at the end. And in the chat box, I'll put a couple of links as well as my email. I look forward to your applications.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Rodriguez-Fee, and I am a faculty member in the Children's Rights Clinic. So I'm excited to chat with you all for a few moments about the work that our clinic does and how much we currently need your help. And this was pre-pandemic, I don't even know when. This was a group of our fantastic clinic students. If you could advance to the next slide, please. So I will start actually with a plea, which is that the students K through 12 in the greater Los Angeles area need your help now, probably more than ever before. The effects of the pandemic are just starting to be, the data is starting to be collected, and it's daunting and overwhelming and really scary, actually. What we're finding is most students in the greater Los Angeles area, particularly the second largest school district in the country, LAUSD, most students have experienced educational loss and regression over the last 2 years. This is disproportionately impacting our clients in the clinic, which is students with disabilities, students of color, and students with behavior needs. So we just this past semester have seen record numbers in expulsion cases, kids who have gotten into trouble on campus and are being looked to be removed from the school long-term, record number of discrimination claims that parents are bringing against school districts, and then really significant deficits for our kiddos with special education needs. So the work is always important, but probably not been a moment in time where it is more important. So what do? We represent kiddos and their parents or education rights holders in a variety of areas. Most of our cases deal in special education law, which is a very unique area of law, deals in with the IDEA, which is a federal piece of legislation, and the California equivalent. And we represent the needs of students who maybe have not received appropriate supports and services from their schools and school district. We also handle, as I mentioned, discipline cases. So these are kiddos who have done something, made a mistake, as we all did when we were kids. I made many of them. But if those mistakes in any way correlate to school, then they can be suspended, they can be expelled for up to a year. And what attaches is a bunch of procedural rights, and that's where we get involved. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We also work in, as I mentioned, disability discrimination, and particularly looking at Section 504, which some of you might be familiar with. It is the federal statute that actually follows students out of high school into higher education. If any accommodations are needed, Section 504 is that statute that allows for those accommodations. So we can utilize Section 504 for our clients in asking for access and appropriate accommodations in their classroom. Next slide. So what are you doing in the clinic? And it's wonderful to feel good and help people, but it's also really important that you gain skill in the significant amount of work that you're going and time that you're going to be investing in the clinic for the semester. And we really do focus on transferable skills. So skills that you can learn and practice, but then that can follow you into any area of law that you end up pursuing after the clinic and upon graduation and bar passage. A lot of intakes and interviews. We have a couple clinic pairs this semester. It's basically their whole caseload has just been intake after intake after intake. And we've seen them progress in their ability not just to gather the important information, but also to keep a potential client on track, not spend 3 hours talking to a client, really gathering the information that is important for us in order to determine if we can assist. When I mentioned we represent students with IEPs, we actually, and that is a special education support plan, we actually collaborate with the schools and the administrators at the schools. And in order to do that, we have to go into what we consider to be mini negotiation settings. And we do that frequently over the course of the semester, where we go in advocating for a particular position. We know the school has likely a position that is in opposition to ours. And so we're trying to mediate that scenario and work out something that is favorable to all of the parties involved, and most importantly, favorable to our child client and our client's needs. So that's a frequent type of skill that you're going to be practicing in the clinic is negotiation, counseling, advising your clients on how they might want to proceed given the response from a school district. Our discipline hearings, as I mentioned, if a child's going to be removed from school, they have to first be provided a hearing. And those are like mini trials. So there are opening and closing statements, witnesses will be presented. You can provide direct examination, cross-examination, we submit evidence. So it is not me doing it and then you watching me do it as your supervisor. These are your clients in the clinic. So it would be you and a case partner planning for trial, presenting at trial, and then even if necessary, if we're not successful at that first stage, appealing the matter to the next level. So that requires all of those trial preparation skills. And then all the things we don't think about, right? How do you write a letter? And so many of us think we have great letter writing skills, and then when you actually have to sit down at the computer and type it out, that can be really challenging. How do you manage cases and a full class load and life and all of those things? So all of those sort of soft skills that are actually probably the most important skills, you will work on those as well. Next slide, thank you. So very similar clinic mechanics to the community lawyering clinic. We offer the clinic in the fall and the spring, and we'll talk about the application process in a moment and how you can sort of pre-select your preference. We meet on Tuesdays for 2 hours. The current time is 1:30 to 3:30. We also require your presence in our clinic for office hours, 4 hours a week. That can be scheduled around your class schedule and based on your preference. It is 5 graded units. You are working on average, it's sort of changed, but we'd say anywhere from, I would say 12 to 17 hours a week, depending on your client and case demands. And we do have an additional requirement because you may be presenting to potential judges. A lot of our clients actually are considered crossover. So we may be representing them in their educational needs, but they also are involved either in the delinquency system. So they may be appearing before a delinquency judge or the dependency system, and they may be appearing before a dependency judge. We may be part of those appearances at some point. So because of that, California requires that you be certified. So in order to be certified, one of the major components is that you have to either be taking evidence simultaneously as the same semester you take the clinic, or already have taken evidence. All right. And then when it comes to, we do ask, because we're working with schools, mostly schools, if you have ever been a teacher or an administrator, you know that they start at a specific time and then they're out by like 4. So we need you to have some flexibility, daytime flexibility in your schedule. We do work frequently with evening students and skill students, so we can accommodate that schedule, but we just ask that you have some flexibility during the daytime so you can actually make the necessary contacts with the parties. And I think I have one more slide. So a few questions we frequently get: you don't have to have experience working with children. You don't even really need to love them or like them, but you kind of need to recognize that you're representing their interests and then be able to prioritize that. So that's very important, but you don't need to have any actual experience working with kids in the past. You do have to be in good academic standing. This is for all of the clinics, but you do not need to have a particular GPA in order to apply and participate. And then certainly we do not train our students to be child lawyers and advocates. And this goes for any other clinic as well. As I mentioned previously, the intent is to give you this great toolbox of skills that then you could take and transfer into any particular area of law that you're interested in or that you wind up going into. So all of the skills we work on, yes, we're working in this particular pocket, but they're so easily transferable to any other practice area. And you'll find with potential employers, they're really just interested in what you've done and the skills you've learned, and not so much about the area of law. I think that's it. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to chatting with you more and answering any questions that you might have later on.
Hello, and so hi, I'm Amy Wanger, and I'm teaching the Eviction Defense Clinic. So thanks for being here, everybody. This is a new clinic we just launched this spring, so we are still sorting out all of the logistics, but this has been very successful so far, and we're looking forward to having some of you on fall and continuing forward as well through spring and fall. So what do you do in the Eviction Defense Clinic? We have students participate as interns at Inner City Law Center, which is a nonprofit law firm. We handle tenant cases where low-income tenants are at risk of eviction and at risk of becoming homeless. So we represent people without charge, and we represent them in all aspects of their cases. This means that when cases are filed, we file an answer, that when cases are in motion, sometimes we get referrals when cases are already happening, and we file motions, and we sometimes go to trial. The vast majority don't actually go to trial, but we go to trial when the case goes to trial. And sometimes cases are referred to us after the judgment has been entered, and we work on post-judgment motions as well. So all of the students who are working this spring are Inner City Law Center interns and working with attorneys on cases that Inner City Law Center represents through either the Shriver program or the Stay Housed LA program, which are two conduits through which these cases from low-income tenants come to Inner City Law Center. What does it mean? It means at any given day, you could be doing any of 1,000 different things. Next slide, please. How often do we have these cases? In a typical year, and the pandemic has dropped the number some, but there are 50,000 eviction cases in an average year in Los Angeles County. Organizations like Inner City Law Center and other nonprofits work to keep people housed who are at risk of eviction. This spring, we had a bunch of different assignments. A first set of assignments was speaking with clients. All of the EDC students spoke with clients. Students have done full intakes. They have helped prepare for deposition. They have gotten client declarations filled out. They've done all sorts of client need assessment. A second thing that we've been able to do, I can't guarantee this happens every semester, but we did have a full jury trial where clinic students were part of the trial team. So they were not the lead attorney in the trial, obviously, but we're sitting with the lead attorney discussing trial strategy and talking about observations. Oh, I think juror number 7 is nodding off, or whatever else, which is super useful. The students participate and discuss at settlement conferences. And so we've had at least one full settlement conference where everyone was able to attend, speak with the client, speak with the other side, listen as the judge talked to both parties. We've had a deposition this semester where we had one student who, just schedule-wise, one student was available and at the depo defense and participated in what was almost a day-long deposition defense. It was a very lengthy, drawn-out deposition. And finally, writing. How much writing do you do in this clinic? You do a lot of writing. Everybody in the clinic has done anti-harassment letters to landlords. It's unfortunate, but there's basically an infinite supply of landlord harassment, so there's always a need for harassment letters. Everybody's done motions for judgment on the pleadings. We've had 2 MSJs, 1 motion to bifurcate. Everybody's done amended answers, jury instructions. We've had an ex parte application. Everybody's worked with discovery. Everybody's done client letters and research memos. So these are all the sorts of work that you're doing in these cases. These are extremely fast-moving cases. A landlord attorney, they file a case, they can request a trial date within 20 days. And so as a result, from a clinical perspective, it means that you can see a case come in and be resolved while you're there. And I can't emphasize enough, this is how we fight gentrification. This is how we fight for economic justice. The vast majority of our clients are low-income people of color, largely being attempted to be displaced by faceless LLCs and so on, who want to jack up the price of a particular space and think that they can remove our clients. And so we take great pride in keeping people housed in the face of this eviction machine. Next slide, please. So the logistics of it, this does meet the experiential requirement. As with the other clinics, you do need to have taken or be taking evidence so that you can become a certified student. We have weekly supervision meetings. This semester, everything has been by Zoom because the majority of court hearings are also by Zoom. Depending on what Los Angeles court does next semester, I anticipate that there will be much more physical in-court participation. This semester, we've had about 2 weeks of in-court participation with students, but I anticipate that next semester, students will be going to court once every couple of weeks. And yeah, it's Wednesday nights. I hope to see some of you there. Shoot me an email if you have any questions.
That was incredibly exciting to hear about. For those of you, as Kayumi mentioned, it's a new clinic. So when I'm listening to it, it makes me want to participate in the eviction defense clinic. Amazing work. I'm going to be speaking about the Family Law Clinic. Professor Rebecca Fisher, who's featured in this picture in the center of these women, is not able to be here today, but she asked me to speak on behalf of her. So this clinic is a collaboration with Harriet Buhai Center for Family Law. Professor Fisher is an attorney at Harriet Buhai. If you could advance the slide, please. What are you going to be doing in this clinic? In this clinic, students engage in all aspects of representation in family law matters. They deal with dissolution of marriage, they deal with division of assets, they deal with custody issues, there's issues with regards to domestic violence, and you get involved in the case from the beginning. You are engaging in their intake process and assessing whether there's a case that can be worked on. You're developing, as a student, you're developing your client counseling skills, your interviewing skills, your time management skills, office management, making sure that all of the files are put in the proper place, preparing forms, engaging in letter writing, engaging in discovery, engaging in motion writing. So really everything that a family law lawyer would be doing, you are doing as well. Next slide, please. In terms of some of the questions that have been garnered from some of the clinic cases, this gives you just a snapshot of some of the things that they deal with. Things like, I'm not on a birth certificate, but I am the father. How do I make sure that I'm able to see my child? Can I get a restraining order from the other person who never physically touched me, but they are scaring me? So you can go through and read the types of issues that arise, but these are some of the things sort of outside of what you might imagine that comes up in the context of the clinic. Next slide. In terms of logistics, this is like the other clinic classes that we offer. This one meets Tuesday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. It meets on campus at Southwestern. It's 5 units and graded. The work is actually, instead of being performed at Southwestern, you go to the Harriet Buhai Center for Family Law and do your office hours there. You also have a supervision meeting with Professor Fisher, and it may be with one of the other supervising attorneys who are working at Harriet Buhai. One of the things I just want to highlight is some of you might know that we do have an externship available at Harriet Buhai. And the way that the clinic differs from that externship is that with the clinic, you are getting far more substantive law training. You're also getting far more skill development in that you are practicing the skills in the seminar or class session that meets Tuesday morning. You're getting constant feedback, but most importantly, you are being treated more like an associate on the case as opposed to an extern. And what I mean by that is you're taking ownership of these cases. You are being treated like you're an associate and Rebecca Fisher is the partner. And I think this is true for all of our clinics, but just wanted to highlight that it's not discrete projects. Write this memo, perhaps look into this one issue, maybe write a singular brief. You are involved in all aspects of the case. You might not see it to fruition because these cases tend to take longer, but you are integrated. Students have to have taken family law or family law procedure and practice or community property. You don't have to have all of them, just one of those three. And you do need some flexibility to work during daytime hours because there are a number of agencies or you might be dealing with a court that you have to be able to access during that time. I think that is the last slide, but I will double check. Yes, now I'll pass it along. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Ramos, and I am the director of the Immigration Law Clinic. I actually include this slide intentionally. I wanted to showcase that we obviously have been on Zoom like every other class for a portion of the year or the semester. And we can still have fun on Zoom. I have a lot of fun with the different Zoom features, but it's also just shows that even on Zoom, even in the remote world, we've been able to work closely together to get to know each other. And I now like to think of it as we have revolutionized legal services as part of our clinical programs because we are serving our clients remotely and have really made it easier for them to access legal services. So I think in many ways, the pandemic has helped the community access legal services and access the work that we do as well. And the other bit is that it reminds me of the different students in the clinical program. We work with scale students, second, third, fourth year students, students in the evening program. And in this semester, I also worked with a Siderman Fellow. So one of the students from Argentina who participated in the program, who I was just in contact with actually today, which is really cool. We still stay in contact even across the continents. So anyone can participate in the legal clinic programs. Next slide, please. So as you've heard today, you really can make a difference in someone's life by participating in the programs. And really, that's what the clinical programs are all about, each and every one of them. I mean, you've heard from many different professors, and really a call to action to participate, because there is so much work that needs to be done, whether it's in eviction defense, in children's rights, helping a child access legal advocates, or in the immigration clinic, any of the programs. It's really serving the community and making a change now while you are a law student. So as a second, third, fourth year law student, you can make a change in someone's life. And it really is a significant change in someone's life, but for the work that we do, that person might not have access to legal counsel. And then ultimately, you're really making the world a better place, right? Making our community a better place. So don't wait until you graduate. Participate now and start making a change in someone's life. In the immigration clinic, we work on humanitarian forms of relief for the most part. So we focus on visa cases, which help crime victims. We then help those clients that we served at one point in their lives down the road obtain their green card. We work with children as well. So I have a client actually this semester who is 3 years old. So very young clients up until age 20 who are trying to get a special form of relief called Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. And we also help clients renew DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. So now there is a way to at least renew your work permit. So different types of cases. Next slide, please. So like all of the other clinical programs, what you are doing is really transforming from being a student to an advocate in 14 weeks. So very fast paced. We do a lot of work and you learn a lot. So the way I structure my class is during the class time, that's where I teach the law and the procedure. And then outside of class, you learn by doing really more than anything. It's by actually working on your cases. We do a lot of interviewing and counseling real clients. So you are actually taking all those skills that you might have learned in an interviewing and counseling class and applying them constantly, probably every week, and working with your clients. You take primary responsibility for casework. You are not helping me. You are actually taking full ownership of the case and doing everything on the case. We work together. I supervise your work. I review your work, just like all of the other clinical professors, but you take primary responsibility for the work. And in doing so, you learn how to be a problem solver. You think about case strategy because things come up. We're not working on hypotheticals here. We're working with real clients and things go wrong all the time. It could be something small. It could be something huge. And then you learn how to deal with it and provide solutions. We also do a lot of writing, and I really work hard to help you develop your writing skills. That is our craft as lawyers, right? We're always learning to be better writers. I feel like I'm learning that every day. And so we really take a lot of time to help you develop your writing, becoming a persuasive writer, whether it's in a declaration or other forms of professional documents, even an email. And I know that in this generation, there's texting that goes on and it's acronyms. I don't even understand half of them because I'm a completely different generation. But in the professional environment, you don't text or Snapchat or whatever else is available. You write professional emails, and that's actually really important. And as we hear about in the news, emails are important documents that maybe will be referenced later on down the road. So that is actually an important skill. And all of this is really developing your professional identity, developing important professional habits, so that when you graduate from Southwestern, you're going to hit the ground running and will be ready to start practicing. Next slide, please. And then if you could, I think if you have to click to show the quotes that I included. So I included just photos from our students and then one more from last semester and some quotes from these students. So again, these are students who were traditional days, second, third, fourth year, scale students and evening students participated in the program. And some of the feedback that I received, they just provided some really beautiful quotes about their experience. And it wasn't just the work that they did, it was also feeling the camaraderie with the other students, making friends. I often say this, what I love about the clinic experience is that you often meet classmates that you never met before, and then you develop a really great friendship. I also participated in the clinic in law school, and one of my closest friends is someone I met in clinic. I would never have met her otherwise. She was in a different section, but we became friends, and she's still one of my closest friends. So it's not only good work, but it's also a great way to meet your classmates. Next slide, please. So the nuts and bolts of the Immigration Law Clinic, next semester, in the fall semester, we are offering it in the evening class, as an evening class on Wednesdays. And in the spring semester, it will be during the day on Tuesdays. It is 5 units and graded, just like many of the other clinics. And you do have weekly in-house clinic office hours if we are in-house. So I have a photo here of our beautiful legal clinic office with students working in the office pre-pandemic. Hopefully we will return to being in the office. If we don't, you work at home just like the rest of us are doing right now. And as Professor Waterstone already mentioned, there is a difference between a clinic and an externship. I would say one of the main things is that you're working closely with a professor. So you're not working maybe with 1, 2, 3, 4 supervisors in an externship setting, but rather working really closely with your clinical professor, working really closely with Heidi and Angel, who are part of the clinic family, getting to know each other really well, but just receiving this more intense supervision, because that's part of our job, right? I'm not here just to serve my clients. I'm here to serve the students as well, and hopefully help you become a really strong advocate. And I think that's it. I think I was speaking really fast, but I think that's my last slide. Yes.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Laura Wesley, here to talk a little bit about the Street Law Clinic. And I know we've been talking a lot at you, so I would ask you all to do a little bit of engagement. So if you could just locate the raise your hand feature on the bottom of the Zoom screen. And just really quickly, I would like you to raise your hand if you know what to do if a landlord refuses to repair your leaky roof. So raise your hand if you know what to do. Okay, got one. All right. What about raise your hand if you are confident that you know how to spot a scam on Instagram? You've never been scammed before, you know how to spot one. Okay, so we have a couple people. What about, how many of you, raise your hand if you know what to do when the police ask if they can search your car? Okay, a couple more, got some con law folks here. Awesome. Okay, good. Well, the good news is that you don't need to know how to do all of these things, but these are some of the things that you learn in the Street Law Clinic. If you could advance the slide, that'd be great. And thank you for participating. So in the Street Law Clinic, what we do is that we teach law-related critical life skills to young people in Los Angeles County. So usually between 16 and 18 years of age. And we teach them depending on where they're located. So often our students are involved in either the foster care system or juvenile justice system. So we have street law students that are placed at charter schools, they're placed at continuation schools, so students who haven't been able to function well in a regular public school. We have them placed in facilities where there's a lot of foster care youth. We have them placed at juvenile hall. So a lot of our students have struggled in some way, and they really, really need our help, right, to help transition successfully into adulthood. So some of the things that we take for granted that we may have learned from our parents or we may have learned from school, these young people lack those sort of resources. So we kind of become little mini experts in a variety of topics. It might be constitutional law, how your rights might differ on school campus versus out in the community, landlord-tenant law, employment law, what kind of rights do you have as an employee, consumer law, let's see. We also have the court process, right? Like how does a case go through the court process? Who are the people in the court? So a variety of different topics. Those are what we're teaching to our young people. And also, as I mentioned before, a lot of our students do have learning disabilities, so they've allowed them to qualify for special education services, and that's why they're at some particular school sites. You can go to the next slide. All right, so benefits to students. So a little bit different than our other clinics, right? Where we're directly providing services and representing clients. We don't actually represent our students. That doesn't mean it's not valuable. It doesn't mean you don't learn a lot, right? So you're going to learn about issues of court-involved youth. So if you are interested in, maybe eventually representing young people who are involved in the juvenile justice system or in the dependency system, you'll learn a little bit about that. You learn about minors' rights. And then I think most importantly, and what we've heard about from some of our other clinics, is that you'll be able to take these really complex legal topics and be able to explain them in layman's term, right? Because our young people aren't going to be able to understand any of the legal gobbledygook that we learn in law school. So I think it's a really important skill that you'll take away. You'll also take away some important communication skills. You'll be presenting every week at a school site for 90 minutes, which sounds like a really long period of time, but you'll be amazed how quickly that time goes. So you'll have lots of presentation and public speaking skills, also time management, organizations. You're creating lesson plans. You're thinking about how am I going to be able to teach this content in a way that's engaging, because unlike most of your law school classes where you have the professor up and speaking at you for so long, that doesn't work with students. And I'm a firm believer in learning by doing. So, we want our students to be able to take in content, and then how are we going to know if they learned it? They've applied it in a certain way, right? They've gone through hypotheticals, they've done some other engaging activities so that it solidifies in them, so that if they ever are faced with this sort of situation in the future, they know how to handle that. We also have tons and tons of community resource folks who come into our class to speak to us, to share some of their legal knowledge. We visit the courts. Unlike, a regular court, dependency court is not open to the public. So a lot of times, you have a lawyer who's never actually seen the dependency court. We actually get to go to dependency court. We got to watch the proceedings that happen and figure out who does what in the courtroom. And the same thing for the juvenile court as well. We get to visit that. We get to hear real cases. So that is always a fun thing to do. And next slide, please. So here's some of the nuts and bolts regarding our clinic. So it is offered both in the fall and spring. We meet Tuesday mornings from 9 to 11. As I mentioned, we do go on some field trips. We have speakers to our class. In addition to meeting on Tuesday mornings, you also are at a school site. So that usually takes place on Thursday and Friday, depending on what your schedule is. Again, it's for 90 minutes. So those are kind of the two main requirements, and it is during the school day. So, you have to have some sort of flexibility sometime during a regular school day in order to be able to do your lessons with your students. In order to be eligible, you have to be able to complete some site licensing requirements, because we are working with young people. So there's certain rules and requirements we have for that. So most likely there'll be a live scan, which is they'll do a background check, right? Just to make sure, to see if there's any criminal activity in your background. There's most likely a TB test as well. And then the drug tests, I rarely have sites anymore that ask for drug testing. So, if there's recreational use, please, for illegal drugs, that's fine. That's not something that will necessarily stop you from being a street law student. It's 3 units. It's graded and it meets our experiential requirements. So that's it for the Street Law Clinic. I hope that you will consider applying and change the life of a young person who needs your help.
I think I'm going to jump in here regarding the application process. The next slide, please. So next steps on how you can change the life of someone in the community. So the application deadline is June 1st, so a little bit of time after you finish finals and end of the semester, you need to submit an application for both the fall and spring semester. The application is on the portal, and there's one application for the clinics listed here, with the exception of the family law clinic, which has a different process, different application process. The appellate litigation clinic involves an email to Professor Knapp. So you should be able to find all the applications on the portal. And what you do is you just rank your interest, and we obviously take that into account in the application process. Next slide, please. So you will see once you are accepted to a clinic that we include in our acceptance, if you decide to enroll in the clinic, you cannot withdraw without compelling reasons and without approval from the director of the legal clinic program. And the reason for that is because every single clinic involves either making arrangements with a class to allow our students to participate in street law, or actually reserving clients to work with you during the semester. So if you suddenly drop out of the clinic and it is the day before the first class, then we are left without an advocate for that client or without a student to teach the street law class. And obviously that is a terrible position for us to be in. It's, just a terrible thing for Southwestern, right? To have to kind of scramble to deal with what do we do with the client that we have promised these legal services. And then we're trying to figure out a way to find a student to replace you. And when it's a 5-unit class, that's hard for someone to just jump in, right? It's not an easy thing to do. So when you make the commitment, obviously you have time to think it over. When you make the commitment, you have to make the commitment because it is important. It reflects on you as a student and on us as a clinical program. Next slide. So I'm not sure if this is me or not, but here are all the professors who direct each clinical program and the respective clinical program, which you're welcome to reach out to any one of us if you have questions. There we go. So at this point, I think we're just opening it up for questions, and I don't know if they're going to be in the chat or Philip.
Hi, everyone. I've heard that next year for evening students of the 3 Ls, the evidence is going to be in the spring. That's normally in the fall. And I was curious about the sequence of when in the day the class is the for children's rights in particular. I think one of them's earlier, one's later in the day, I believe.
For children's rights, we will be, in terms of the class time, you mean?
Correct, yeah.
Tuesdays, 1:30 to 3:30 in the spring as well.
In the spring. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ariana, I saw your hand up.
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering, I know that the time commitment for a good couple of the clinics requires to be free in the day. So I work part-time as a full-time day student. I'm wondering if there's any other time commitments that I should look out for, particularly, I guess, street law for the street law clinic at this time.
Yeah, so we work I match you with a partner and with a school site, and I tend to be flexible. So depending on when you're working, so say, I'm free on Thursdays from 9 to 11, then I try to find a school site that has that time frame in there. I mean, more flexibility is better because schools have specific times that they need the class, but I can definitely, be flexible in that, usually on Thursdays and Fridays.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Camelia. Sorry.
Hello, thank you. This question is for Professor Ramos and Professor Fee. So for both of your clinics, if we are still having a flexible, like a remote option, and students are approved like for the remote option, would your clinics be able to accommodate that? Professor Fee, I understand that in your situation, like if there are negotiations with school or for the hearings, that wouldn't be possible within those situations.
Professor Ramos, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, for the class, it is possible to continue remote, I think. So I just will say I don't know what the administration is planning for the future. So I can't answer at this point. But you will be required to come to the clinic to work on certain aspects of the case. So whether it's putting the case together, there might be times actually that you might need to meet with a client outside. That's what we've been doing. Is there may be times that the client can't send or email things, so students will meet with them outside. So we've been able to work it out. I just don't think I can answer as to what the rules will be next semester altogether.
I understand. Thank you.
And I'll just add for our clinic, apart from the times when we were mandated to be off campus, so after spring break and then certainly at the start of the semester, we did otherwise require, and then obviously if you're sick or there's a family member sick and there's a temporary option that needs to be utilized. But this semester, apart from all of those scenarios, we did require in-person attendance, both because of the clinic and client demands. But in particular, we do so much simulation in the class time that it really makes it challenging to simulate when we have some with poor microphones who can't really hear. It's hard for those students who are virtual to participate in addition to those that are in person. But I don't know what's going to change for the fall.
Understood. Thank you both very much.
Ashley?
Thank you, Professor Fee. This question is Professor Wesley. I'm really interested in the street law clinic, and I was wondering how the school selection works, just because I'm an LA native myself, and I'm from Huntington Park, and I know my city probably needs a lot of that services. So I was wondering if we have some type of tie to the community, would we be going to that community most often, or would you place us in other schools as well?
So you're placed at one school site for 10 weeks. So once a week for 10 weeks, you're at the same school site. We do already have relationships, like I mentioned, with some juvenile facilities and some other schools. However, I'm always open to expand. So, can definitely happy offline to chat with you about the particular school you might have in mind and see whether or not street law might be a good fit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I don't see any hands raised, but maybe something you all thought of in the last few minutes just before we close. Okay, so I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I look forward to all the applications. If you have any questions, you can direct them to the individual professors, or you can also reach out to our general email, which is legalclinic@swlaw. If you do have any questions, we'll stay on for a few minutes, but thank you all and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Bye, everyone.